They call it the most complex machine ever built by human hands. A tiny sliver of sand, etched with light, performing billions of calculations in the blink of an eye. To understand our world today, you have to go back to 1968, to a valley of apricot orchards and a company called Fairchild Semiconductor. Fairchild was the mother church of Silicon, but its New York bosses didn't share the vision, so two of its brightest stars walked out. Robert Noyce, co-inventor of the integrated circuit, and Gordon Moore, the man who saw the future of computing power doubling every 2 years. On July 18, 1968, they founded Intel, raising $2.5 million with a one-page plan. A year later, another Fairchild legend, a flashy salesman named Jerry Sanders, was pushed out. He started Advanced Micro Devices, or AMD, with a simple goal: build Intel's designs, but faster and cheaper. And just like that, the rivalry that would define modern computing was born. Back in 1981, the tech world was about to change forever. IBM, the giant of computing, decided to build its own personal computer. For the PC's brain, they picked the Intel 8088 chip. But IBM was smart. They didn't want to rely on just one supplier. What if Intel's factory had a problem? So they told Intel to find a backup. This led to a historic deal in 1982. Intel and a smaller company, AMD, signed a 10-year agreement. Intel would share its designs, and AMD would be the safety net, guaranteeing a steady supply of chips. This partnership kickstarted the PC revolution, putting computers in homes and offices everywhere. But behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. Intel, led by the tough-as-nails Andy Grove, saw that the real money wasn't in memory chips anymore. It was in microprocessors. They made a risky choice, abandoning their old business to go all in on processors. And in this new high-stakes game, they decided they didn't need a partner. They wanted to own the market, setting the stage for one of the biggest rivalries in tech history. Imagine a war not fought with soldiers but with silicon. Back in 1986, Intel betrayed its partner, AMD, keeping the new 386 chip all to itself right before the PC boom. This wasn't just business, it was a full-on attack. Intel even sent AMD technical tapes that were deliberately unreadable, just to hobble them. They ditched number names for the trademarked Pentium, so D couldn't follow their lead. And who could forget the Intel Inside jingle? It made an invisible part a household name. Pushed into a corner, AMD was forced to innovate or die. It was a brutal fight. But in 1999, the underdog did the impossible. AMD's Athlon processor became the first to break the 1 GHz speed barrier, beating the mighty Intel to the punch. For the first time, the giant was playing catch-up. Back in the early 2000s, computing was hitting a wall. 32-bit chips just couldn't handle enough memory. Intel's big bet was a radical new chip called Itanium, but it broke compatibility with all existing software. AMD, on the other hand, played it smart. They simply extended the popular x86 architecture to 64-bit, calling it AMD 64, and kept everything backward compatible. Guess who won that round? The entire industry, including Microsoft for Windows, chose AMD's path. Intel was even forced to license the technology from its biggest rival. But Intel didn't play fair. Instead of innovating, they used their massive cash reserves. From 2001 to 2005, they paid billions in loyalty rebates to major companies like Dell and HP, but with a catch: they had to boycott AMD. AMD had the better technology, but couldn't even get its chips into stores. Eventually, justice was served. Intel was fined a record $1.45 billion by the EU and paid AMD another $1.25 billion in a historic settlement. Just as AMD got a cash infusion from that settlement, things started to go wrong, really wrong, from the inside. They launched their new bulldozer architecture, and frankly, it was a complete disaster. The chips were slow, they guzzled power, and they ran way too hot. This kicked off a death spiral for the company. Their server market share, which they had fought so hard for, practically vanished. By 2015, the situation looked grim. Wall Street analysts were already writing AMD's obituary, predicting they'd be bankrupt by 2020. Meanwhile, what was Intel doing? They were sitting on a huge pile of cash, enjoying a near-total monopoly. And they got lazy. They stopped pushing the boundaries of innovation, getting stuck on their quad-core designs for what felt like an entire decade, just milking the market. When Lisa Su took over AMD, everyone thought the problem was spreadsheets and business strategy. But Dr. Su knew the real issue was the silicon itself, so she made a gutsy move. She simplified the entire company and bet everything on a brand new architecture called Zen. To make it happen, she brought back the legendary chip designer Jim Keller. Together, they pulled off what the industry called impossible, a 52% performance jump in a single generation. But their true secret weapon wasn't just raw power. It was an idea called the chiplet. Instead of building one massive, expensive chip, they created smaller, perfect modules and essentially stapled them together. This was a game changer. It was cheaper, more efficient, and allowed them to scale up to 64 cores while their competition was stuck at 28. For decades, Intel was king. A huge part of that dominance came from their pride and joy, their own manufacturing plants, their fabs. They controlled everything from design to production, but that pride became a prison. When it was time to move to the next generation of chip technology, the 10-nanometer and then the 7-nanometer process, Intel just couldn't. They got stuck. For years, they were trapped, unable to make the leap forward while the world of tech zoomed past. Meanwhile, AMD, the underdog, made a brilliant, game-changing decision. They stopped trying to build their own factories and instead outsourced all their manufacturing to a specialist, TSMC in Taiwan. And just like that, the tables turned. For the very first time in history, the follower, D had a massive technological advantage over the mighty Intel. The student had become the master. The year is 2024, and the game has completely changed. We're not just talking about CPUs anymore. We're in the middle of a full-blown AI revolution. NVIDIA might be wearing the crown right now, but a massive $1 trillion market is up for grabs, and the old guard is fighting back hard. Take AMD. They are absolutely on fire. Their Instinct MI350 GPUs are the fastest tramping product in the company's entire history. They've even teamed up with OpenAI, supplying a staggering 6 gigawatts of compute power. On the desktop front, they've clawed their way to over one-third of the market share. Then there's Intel, reborn as America's national champion. With the U.S. government backing them with a nearly 10% equity stake, they've become a world-class systems foundry. Their 1-ADA process is finally in high-volume production, giving them a performance lead over TSMC for the first time in a decade. Picture this. It's January 2026. Intel has just dropped Panther Lake, their brand new CPU on the groundbreaking 1-ADA node. Their mission? To finally snatch the power efficiency crown back from Apple. But while these two giants are staring each other down, a new contender, ARM, is quietly taking over the entire data center market from the inside. So what happens next? In a twist no one saw coming, these two lifelong rivals, Intel and Apple, team up. They form the x86 Ecosystem Advisory Group to defend their shared kingdom. They're working together on new standards to keep the x86 architecture alive and kicking. Think about it. These companies have survived at all monopolies, market crashes, you name it. They know that in the world of silicon, it's not Moore's law that rules. It's the law of survival. And as they face the coming age of AI, they understand one thing perfectly. Competition is a hell of a drug. What a time to be alive. Thanks for watching.